And now, the moment that you've been waiting for. It's time to go to the islands. We're going to the Galapagos. You like my little quick wardrobe change? I just left my sunscreen. But listen, guys, we're getting ready for Monday Night Football. Eagles and Falcons. And what better way than to hit Action Island and come back here on Green Dot Daily with the aforementioned Sean Koerner, Nick Giffen, and Gilles Gallant. They are joining me now in the Action Island, or I guess behind me. Look at them. Look at their beautiful faces right here. We are going to concoct a same game parlay. Guys, Action Island is back. And so if you're new here and you haven't been on Action Island before, what will happen is Nick, Sean, Gilles, they're going to give out two of their best bets. We're going to vote one in, vote one off. Of course, these are not always official plays, so follow them in the Action Network app for those official plays. But Nick Giffen, you're up first. What are our first two legs that we're voting on?
Yeah, first leg is, and by the way, this is the Eagles. We hit an Action Island parlay week 2 with the Eagles last year, so we got to do it again this year. First pick, Jalen Hurts, 2 touchdowns, 2+ touchdowns, plus 650 or so. This is crazy. He's done this 13 times in 57 career starts, including the playoffs, which is 22.8% of the time. If that was his true long-term rate every game, that would equate to plus 340 as fair value. So honestly, I don't even have stuff about the matchup here. It's just too long. The odds are too long. I'm just playing the numbers game here. And then for pick number 2, I am going to go with the Atlanta Falcons plus 5.5. Charlie, we haven't talked enough yet this year about the luck rankings. The luck rankings have this as a game. Atlanta is more than 90% in terms of the luck gap of the unlucky team, and road unlucky teams with a luck gap of at least 55% are 17-5-2 in week 2. That's 75% against the spread. And that includes yesterday's game between another hurt QB, Joe Burrow, as Cincinnati covered on the road against Kansas City.
So those are our two legs. Jalen Hurts, 2+ touchdowns, which, the tush push may not be in full effect with Jason Kelce not there, but it's still Jalen Hurts and his athleticism close to the goal line. And then the Falcons, plus 5.5. That's what we're voting between. Gilles, Sean, let's get to voting. All right, guys, in 3, 2, 1. Falcons, Falcons, Falcons. A clean sweep on the luck ranking. I mean, listen, guys, how can we really fade the luck rankings? If Nick Giffen says it's a luck rankings play, it has to be a first leg. And Sean, I know you mentioned in particular that it was, you had this closer to 4. Obviously, it makes sense here to add into our first leg of the same game parlay. A clean sweep, guys, so feeling good in the driver's seat that we're all in agreement. Hopefully we can continue that with Gilles Gallant, who is now up.
Yeah, I'm going to go right to what we just talked about a second ago, Charlie. I'm going right back to the touchdown market. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts for a touchdown at plus 260. He did catch a touchdown last week. I think he's going to be that receiving option that Kirk Cousins could really use here at quarterback. He played 92% of snaps last week and ran a route on 84% of dropbacks. And Jaden Reed had a lot of success out of the slot for Green Bay last week. That's where Kyle Pitts mainly lines up. And, of course, the Eagles, their secondary, a lot of what we saw last year, I think, is happening again. They ranked 28th in defensive DVOA versus tight ends last year. So I like Kyle Pitts to get into the end zone. The other option, though, is kind of just the next man up, and that's Jahan Dotson at plus 370. I mean, if A.J. Brown is going to be out and Johnny Wilson, he didn't practice on Saturday, probably going to be a game-time decision, but I can't imagine he's going to have a full helping of snaps. So I expect Jahan Dotson to play more than 42% that he played in week 1. He did see a red zone target, so at plus 350, you're getting the default wide receiver 2 in the Eagles offense. I think that's the next best option. So Jahan Dotson at plus 370 or Kyle Pitts at plus 260 are my 2 touchdown bets.
Right. We just talked about that earlier on 4-down territory. And it makes sense, right? Like Pitts is such a matchup nightmare in general because he's so much faster than like a bulkier tight end. And then Jahan Dotson, can he step up in this new role with A.J. Brown out? All right, Nick, Sean, we have a touchdown pick to decide between. Let's get to voting. All right, guys, let's vote and show our votes in 3, 2, 1. I got the armpit, and then you have Kyle Pitts. There we go. Another clean sweep. Guys, look at this. You like this? This is a great drawing right now. I had to get creative, you know, because Kyle Pitts, he is the armpit because he's been absolutely brutal in general the last few years. But it feels like with Kirk Cousins, he loves his tight ends. Maybe everything's going to be flowing here. So I like Kyle Pitts as our second leg. Kind of goes hand in hand, too, with us liking the Falcons to cover. Kyle Pitts, one of those guys that's going to be getting us in the end zone. 2 clean sweeps, and now we welcome in the red-hot Sean Koerner for his 2 picks to add to the same game parlay. Sean, where are you headed?
Yeah, so both of these definitely correlate with what we're cooking up. So I'm fine if you guys pick either one of these. But the first one is Darnell Mooney under 36.5 receiving yards. And, you know, the Falcons surprisingly ran the ball at a very high rate in week 1. They actually had the lowest pass rate over expected. And they should be able to lean on the run game here against the Eagles, who allowed, you know, 5 explosive runs to the Packers last week, really got gashed on the ground. So I think they're going to try to stick with the run early on. I do expect the passing offense to bounce back here, but specifically Drake London and Kyle Pitts. You know, Drake London was blanketed by Joey Porter Jr. In week 1, really gave him fits. So I think with the better matchup here, we'll see Drake London break out. And, you know, Mooney's is kind of the 3rd or 4th option. So I think he has a really low floor here. I'm projecting him closer to 32.5. So like his under here. And for the second one, I'm going to go with Kenneth Gainwell under 9.5 rushing yards. And look, the Eagles brought in Saquon Barkley to be the clear lead back, and that's what happened in week 1. You know, Gainwell barely spelled him, and it was mainly on passing downs. He took a couple 2-minute offensive plays from Barkley. So I don't really see him getting much work on the ground here. He only saw 1 carry for 2 yards last week. Also, you know, rookie Will Shipley is going to mix in as well. So Gainwell might need 3 or more carries to clear this. I just don't see that happening. So I like Gainwell under 9.5 rushing yards as well, especially with the, you know, potential post-game or Falcons, you know, having a positive game script here.
Right. It really feels like for Gainwell, it'd have to be a blowout for him to really get the rushes because Saquon Barkley is the lead back. We saw that in week 1. They really hammered it home with him. And then Darnell Mooney, you know, usually you could fade Darnell. He hasn't been that great of late. And listen, you want to get the ball to Bijan. Kyle Pitts, we talked, me and Gilles earlier, about Drake London. He's a little upset, only 2 catches, so maybe you got to feed him the ball more. So Nick, Gilles, we have 2 options. Darnell Mooney under receiving yards, Kenneth Gainwell under rushing yards. Let's get to voting. All right, guys, let's get to voting in 3, 2, 1. Mooney. Oh, see, Nick, you drew a better moon than I did, bro. If I flip a card over, this is my first moon, and that was just like, I don't know what I was doing there. It looks like a 10-year-old tried to draw it. But, all right, we are all in agreement. Darnell Mooney, a clean sweep on the under. So we have Darnell Mooney under, Pitts touchdown, Falcons spread. I'm going to kick it to Nick. How do you feel about this same game parlay we got going on?
I love it. They're all correlated, right? We got Falcons covering, which Kyle Pitts, you know, grabbing the touchdown helps that. And if he grabs an early touchdown, that should help Atlanta maybe have more of a rush-heavy script, which means we don't have to throw it to Mooney as much. So I like the correlation here.
Listen, guys, I know that I wasn't here leading the ship, steering it all over the Galapagos in week 2 last year when you guys hit the same game parlay with the Eagles, and you did it again and, you know, against the Buccaneers in the playoffs. This is our lucky team here, but I think this is it. I think, you know, I'm just here to help with the voting. You guys are the actual ones creating it. So Nick Giffen, Gilles Gallant, Sean Koerner, appreciate you guys getting on. You can take your red eye back home now. And just a reminder, if you want to know what the same game parlay came out to be, it's a plus 850 parlay between Falcons plus 5.5, Kyle Pitts anytime touchdown, Darnell Mooney under receiving yards plus 900 rather. Be able to shop around, maybe use a booster once or twice. But yeah, there you have it. 3 legs, and maybe get crazy, pick and choose what you heard from them. That's what the beauty is of Action Island.